Gigs, man. We're here to talk about a film that's coming out this Friday by the name of The Northman, which is a film that very high praise on this side of the bill, man. A big fan of that film. But just wanted to kind of touch on kind of how did you get started with the project? Where did things kind of begin on, what you're going to be doing on the project, and just kind of your experience on working on this film, man?
Yeah, friend of mine, Jack, was already working on it. He was the double for Clegane, and
Okay.
I was aware that he was doing a Viking kind of production in Ireland. I thought it was a TV series. I didn't know what it really was, and yeah, like Jack gave me a call out of the blue one night, and I was like, "Well, here we go." He doesn't normally just call me out of the blue, and
Yeah.
yeah, he asked me if I wanted to come and do 4 months in Belfast. And this is like early days of, like, this is when film and TV was just coming back after the first initial lockdown where everything stopped, and then things were getting back on the ground as testing became available and productions were kind of, for the first time, navigating this, whole new system of how do we continue to make films and not get shut down because so yeah, I was just like, yeah, dude, hell yeah, let's go. So I was on a plane a week later, and then yeah, I went and did 4 months in Belfast, and dude, it was sick. We probably did, like, I don't know, I'd say like 70% of the film was shot outside,
Yeah. Yeah.
and locations, which is why it looks so good.
Yeah.
None of the backgrounds look fake because they're not. Like, the only stuff we did in the stages was like uh, interiors, and like the stormy boat scene. That was half a boat on a massive gimbal rig in a stage. Some cave stuff, building interiors. That's pretty much the only stuff we did undercover.
Wow.
Everything else was out in the elements.
That was one of my points that I brought up and when I covered the film, was just I always appreciate when you can tell when the actors and director have put the actors on the set, because you feel like you're right there on the journey with them, and it
Yeah.
just brings so much like authenticity to the experience, man. And Robert Eggers, I'm a big fan of his work, coming from The Witch to The Lighthouse to now this kind of bigger budget film. I thought he did such a fantastic job on it, man. But we have a couple. You sent me over some photos, man. If you want to kind of explain some of the days on set, we got one here with you and the star of the film here, and Alexander Skarsgård, who plays Beowulf, man. What was it like meeting Mr. Alexander Skarsgård?
Dude, he's wicked. He was a super, super nice dude. Really easy to work with. Obviously, you can tell by his physique, he worked his ass off to look the part, and he was never a diva when we're making action scenes. You show him what the fight is, and he learns it. He gets on with it. He shoots it, and doesn't try to change every single thing to suit himself, or, like, get away with things he's not comfortable with. He just goes for it, and like Henry, he's just super cool, normal human being. And yeah, not a silk, not a complainer.
That is awesome, man. I'm a big fan of Alex's work, man, and I know I saw a couple things that he was actually he was part of the executive producers, because I know he produced it, so he had a lot of passion. This was a kind of a project he was looking for a long time, and I can speak for myself, and I know you saw the film as well. What a performance, man! I think Alexander Skarsgård.
And the bits I was involved in, like the Natalia fight, then the Natalia game, then that was a hard scene to shoot, bro. Like, we pretty much shot everything in order. So it started out super action packed when it was on fire, and then gradually the numbers whittle down until it's Alex facing off against Hafthor. And just before we even get into like the spoiler stuff, like, Hafthor, what a dude. If you don't know who Hafthor is, if you watch Game of Thrones,
it's the mountain, right?
He's a mountain.
Yeah, and man.
I've never watched Game of Thrones. I wasn't really aware of him. I'd heard the name, But yeah, it was only by hanging out with him, being on his team. My character is sort of on his side.
Yeah.
It's only through hanging out with him on set and talking to him that I learned about the whole Eddie Hall versus Hafthor thing over the deadlift world record. Do you know?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of his work. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I learned about, this was like early stages of that having been confirmed, but Hafthor and I were talking about that and how it all came about. And I'd already seen some interviews with Eddie and not really liked his attitude and just his mega ego.
Yeah.
And as soon as Hafthor like told me what they were doing and why, I was like, oh my god, yeah, I'm on Team Thor. This guy's a dude.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I was pretty stoked that Hafthor came out victorious in that fight. So yeah, I was frothing for that. That was super cool. But on like the spoilery kind of side of things with that, when Alex was doing that headbutting shot, killing Hafthor,
Bashed his head in. Yeah.
oh my god, dude, that was intense. Like each time they shot that, Alex probably did 2 or 3 times as many headbutts as what made the cut.
Oh wow.
He was going to town doing that, and it would always get progressively more intense.
Yeah.
It probably just cut to like the last ones, some of those, because it would have gone on for so long.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, it was savage to watch and just to hear and to feel everything through his vocalizations and just the physicality of that. Like it was mental.
That's awesome.
Really sort of like felt it. I don't think I was in camera at all in that shot because it's such a long shot. You see different things in the background as the camera looks each way. Like by that point, me and all the other dudes are all just dead on the ground. Like we spent a few days just lying there dead, free. And but before that point, I was pretty lucky. Like I had a few little moments where, you know, I swing the Canada stick around and I get hit and I go to the ground and yeah, I actually get like a few nice little moments for my show reel. So I'm pretty stoked with that.
Yeah.
I was hoping for the same with the raid on the Slav village.
Oh,
but
that scene is brutal.
Kind of obscured. So yeah, there we go. That's some of the boys. The dude on the right is the double for Alex. That's Mark Slaughter. And yeah, it's Mark jumping off and doing that sort of downward cut as he jumps off the balcony and takes the North Rider. That was a nice little wire gag. Yeah, man. I know we're bouncing around scenes now, but
no, you're good, man.
A big one to shoot as well. Like the first shot of that was an entire day just for the first shot. So that basically comes from like the tracking behind us as we're all sort of got our wolf skins on.
Yeah.
The spear catch, throwing off the cows and then charging the village and getting up to like climbing. Was like that was all one shot. We shot that something like 20 times in that day. And yeah, they had this like giant sprinkler system over the top of us to wet the set down and wet us down. It was basically like you had to go and have a cold shower before.
Yeah.
So the first AD is like, all right, boys, it's time.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, oh, I get cold.
I mean, that brings me to one of my I mentioned I'm a big fan of Robert Eggers, and you kind of touched on it there as far as like how many takes he looks to get his perfect shot. Is he someone that does very meticulous from your experience from other directors, or does he just kind of go with the flow of things, or I guess kind of what's his directing style compared to other directors you worked with?
I think I've worked now for 2 of the most opposite like household name directors in the world, being Michael Bay and Robert Eggers. Like they are fully polar opposite. Michael Bay doesn't give a crap about anything, and he will fix anything in post that will be resolved on the day. Like if something's in shot and it takes longer than 5 seconds for someone to get rid of because no one's thought far enough ahead to get rid of it for the next shot where it's going to be visible, I'll fix it in post. Whereas Rob and his DOP, Jaron Blaschke, they're the most meticulous dudes that I've come across. And it pays off, man. Like almost every shot in the film, at least with the action, whichever one made the cut is almost definitely the last shot that we did over that action. Wow. Because if it wasn't right, we would just shoot it until it's right. And then if he got it, he wouldn't keep shooting it. He wouldn't get like 3 good takes that are all kind of a maybe, and we'll just see in the edit suite.
Yeah.
It's either right or it's not.
Wow.
So, and on that note, I've got a little thing to own up to for some of the stunt boys and the berserker dudes. So with the with the transformation scene around the fire, which is a lot, where everyone's on mushrooms and they around the fire after doing the ritual chanting and dancing, and then they goes nuts having a fit. That was a long night, and like I said, they pretty much only would use a shot if it was absolutely perfect, and we shot that a bunch of times dry, just because they sort of wanted to have that option, and then they shot it a bunch of times wet. So like the Atlia game, like the Viking, literally my words now, like the Berserker raid, they'd wet everyone down, massive sprinkler system, and then they'd keep it raining through the shot, which looked epic. We shot it super late at night and in the wet a bunch of times. They eventually thought they got the shot, and then they wrapped the whole crew and everyone, like, that's it for the night. And then I went up to Robert, and this would not normally be the protocol, but far into the production, I felt I was on an okay enough page with Rob to say to him, like, oh, you're not going to use that one, are you? And he goes, why not? And I'm like, oh, Jack and I were out of sync in this moment. Basically, like, before the dance gets going, this moment that I promise you no one's going to remember this or probably even notice it, but Jack and I do this thing with our spears. We point them at each other quite close to camera. You can still barely see it. It's that dark. And then we run around into our spots and we start the chant and everything.
Yeah, there. Wow.
If it was off, you'd probably notice. It would have, but because we got it in the end, it doesn't even register. But I said that to Rob, and then he's like, huh. And he's obviously gone and rewatched it, seen that little fault, as tiny as it is. And then when everyone's literally in little, vans getting taken back to unit pace.
Oh, boy.
We recalled the whole set, the whole crew. And we shot it one last time. Yeah. And a lot of the guys were pretty grumpy at that point. Fair enough. It's cold. It was wet. It was late.
Long day.
But yeah, like, they sort of brought a bit of that frustration to that last take. And then we got a really intense last go at it. Yeah. And the final result was sick. Sorry, everyone. I don't know if
this is how we make art. This is how we do it.
But it was Jack and I had not been totally locked in on that. And, like, for me, what an incredible, like, director someone's got to be for you as a random stunt guy to feel like you can make that comment without, like, condemnation, and like getting shouted at or whatever. Like, it is what it is. Shot's not right. They made up some excuse about there being like dust in the camera lens or something like that. But yeah, man, like, Rob is just, all he cares about is just getting the shot, and whatever it costs. It wasn't a big deal for him. And yeah, man, I really respected his attitude about that, because it could have been blown up and made like a whole big thing out of. But yeah, man, like, he's a dude.
I'm a big fan, man. And as you mentioned, just going to his attention to detail, you can see that in his previous work. You can definitely see it in this film, which is, I'm just so amazed by his progression from working with, $5 million on The Witch, doubling that to 11 with the Lighthouse, and now 90 million. You would think from that transition from more smaller independent to maybe a little bit more of a bigger blockbuster with focus features, that there might be a switch in the narrative, a switch in the way he directs things, but it still seems like he brought that approach as like a smaller independent film director working on a big budget, appreciating all the aspects of the stunt guys, you know, the camera person, and just like you just mentioned, getting the shot. So I'm so glad to hear that is that progression of his career hasn't affected him as a filmmaker, and he still wants to get the work done and is willing to make sure he gets the perfect art for him. So I'm a big fan of Rob, man. And I thought this was his best work to date, man, as far as this direction that he gives in this film, which is just masterful in my opinion.
Yeah, fully. I find it kind of baffling in a way, like, to some degree, that he can't stand watching The Witch now because he knows what he wanted to do. And like, that's what I respect about him so much as well, though, is that like the film exists exactly in his head. So all he has to do is find the right people and have the time and the budget to just realize it.
Yeah.
There's no, like, if you asked Rob a question about his own film and he didn't have an answer for you immediately, he would be able to figure out an answer pretty quick and stick to it. You know, like, that's how inside out he knows his film and how much he's thought about it. And that's awesome. You know, like, one of my pieces of advice for people who want to get into film and TV is it's not worth doing unless you absolutely love it, because it's really hard and it's a brutal, unforgiving industry a lot of the time, and it doesn't leave much room for lifestyle if you get really busy and start, you know, having some success. And if directing is the thing you want to do, if you're even slightly indecisive, just please don't be a director. Like, it makes life so much easier for everyone on set, especially the heads of department, if the director just knows what they want. Like, I've worked with some directors who are lovely people and they get the product there in the end somehow, but they're the most indecisive people. And you're just like, how did this person get to be the head of this massive production? Like, they have no idea what they want until you show them what they ask for, and then they realize that's not it. And so they get you to make another version based off ideas from seeing what they thought they want, and it just, you bounce around giving them what they say they ask for each time. Half the time you end up going back to the version.
I can only imagine the frustration that comes with that.
What is wrong with that?
Yeah, that it's you know, I mentioned a lot of my reviews in regards to the captain of the ship and being the director, and I can only imagine, like I said, the frustration that comes with the indecisiveness of working 18, 12-hour days, and just someone that just doesn't know what they're looking for. It has to be frustrating.
Oh, dude, that's why I'm so glad I don't really have any responsibility. Like, my responsibility as a performer ends with my own body and anyone I interact with, and any knock-on effects that might have in a shot for other people. Or if I'm a stunt rigger, I'm responsible for the people below me if I'm up in the air, and I've got responsibility for the people on the other end of a line that I'm pulling. That's it. So yeah, I respect anyone who, you know, can deal with that style of directing at a high level, because that is a hard job. I don't envy it, but I respect it.
Listen, man, I've heard a lot of stories, like you said, a lot of directors that might not be as decisive as others, and even stories I heard about this film with some of the you mentioned Robert Eggers and the way he got the shot, that apparently this wasn't. There was some studio meddling at some points of the film in regards to the final edit. And I know there's rumors that there might be a director's cut of this film, which, give it to me, because I would love to see the full version that Robert had intended for us. But did you experience any of that? Again, this is hearsay, but I did hear that there were some studio interference. Was there anything on set that you can recall, or was it mostly, to your knowledge, just like behind the scenes when they were editing the film, that some of the studio meddling came about?
Nah, anything along that kind of stuff is probably way above my pay grade. And, you know, a lot of those conversations aren't going to be had, you know, available to everyone's ears on set. That's more sort of like production meetings and stuff like that, which often happen at the end of each day or just whenever they have to happen. No, as far as I was concerned, everything was pretty smooth sailing. We had to deal with the elements. Although, you know, I say that like it was cold and wet a lot of the time. But, you know, like, for example, when Amla's father is being assassinated and it's, you know, it's snowing, like, that's just paper. That's not snow. It's cold, but it ain't snowing.
Yeah.
Like, that's just special effects and legit. You know, like, there's so much amazing in-camera stuff that just all comes together to create such a realistic world. And yeah, that's just one tiny example.
Listen, man, and just kind of getting a little bit into the film, it's just kind of your general take on your experience on watching the film. I know you said off camera you saw it about 2 times now. Just kind of your thoughts on the narrative and the story and the performances, man. What was your initial impression after seeing it the first time and going back to see it the second time? Did it enhance the experience? Did you learn more from just kind of the story of it all? Just your general take on this epic Viking saga being told by Robert Eggers in The Northman.
Yeah, so I've seen it twice now, and I enjoyed it more the second time. I think the first time I found it a little bit too slow in the first 30 minutes. Part of that is because it is a little bit slow.
Yeah.
But I think it's more because as a stunty, you're just hanging for the action scenes.
Yeah.
You want to see the stunts you did, you want to see the stunts your mates did, and you just want to see all of, like, your field more than anything in the film. You know, the same way I'm sure the construction guys are looking forward to seeing the set that they built. You know, everyone's so keen to see what they made because everyone's passionate about their craft. So I think the second time I just kind of sat back and really just appreciated the start of the film a bit more, and then the rest of the film I enjoyed, a lot more the second time. And that's, you know, that's saying something because I loved it the first time. I really respect Robert Eggers' honesty about not trying to invent a new story, just saying this is the source material, this is what we've taken from here, this is what we've taken from there. Yeah, it's basically The Lion King, but Vikings, and saying that by keeping the story that digestible and accessible and familiar, he could then be more out there with other parts of the film, like the visuals and the hallucinations and dreams that are a little bit sort of, you know, mystical and otherworldly, and they're not outright saying that there's magic, but it's just kind of indulging in what those characters believed, whether it's actually happening in the story at all. You know, like Olga says a chant and then throws her arms up in the air. Maybe she is magic and she brought that gust of wind to kick that boat along, or maybe it got windy. Like, it's, you know, he's not outright saying that these people
explicitly saying there's magic and
but he lets them have their beliefs, and, you know, he lets it get super art house and weird in the, you know, Robert Eggers way that he can. Is if he tried to do a more complicated story with all of the weirdness, he probably would have lost a lot of audience, and he's aware of that. And, you know, like, another cool example with his work of just being honest about the story, in a Q&A he did about The Lighthouse, someone commented on the plot of The Lighthouse, and they used the word plot in their question. Robert's response is, plot? He goes, I would say this film is devoid of plot. It's just two guys trapped together going insane. Like, the fact that Robert Eggers will say his film is pretty much devoid of plot, this I find so refreshing, because so many filmmakers and artists in general can just make up so much crap about what their art is and just waffle on and just make stuff up and just try to sound like it's just so much like more than it is. And Robert's just like, this is what my art is.
This is what my intent. I love that. I love that, man. And to your point, to The Northman, I think the film has such a great balance of staying kind of grounded in reality, but then throwing in some of that mythos that they approach the film with Norse mythologies and beliefs and, you know, Odin and all the different things. So I definitely think you're so on the money there, where it's just the balancing act that he achieved. I thought was just such a beautiful combination of what's real, what's not, and the character's belief and what you're seeing on the screen. It's a great way to narrate that story.
Yeah, it was awesome, man. I'm keen to see it a third time. Like I'm going to go see it a third time pretty soon, and I'm sure that there's just so much for people to notice every time
Right.
that they watch the film. In a way, with his style, it's kind of a shame that he does always do such long takes without cuts, because when you've been there on set, you feel like they're sort of missing opportunities to really show some of the amazing stuff they did. But then you've just got to be like, no, it's cool that he's not making it like cut city,
Yeah. Yep.
because this is what's making him stand out.
Yep.
Like an example of that is in the Slav village raid that the Berserkers do. One of the kills that Alex does is he kicks a dude's shield into his face.
Yeah.
And on a cinema screen, you can kind of see the result of that impact.
Brutality of it, yeah.
It's this stunt guy, Shane, and dude, I wish I had a photo of it for you. The prosthetic that they did on this guy, with just like an open face and just teeth everywhere. Yeah, it looked incredible, dude. And it was like
practical stuff like that.
It was almost a shame that it didn't cut in to just show the
brutality of it all. Yeah.
But you know, I think it was worth doing that sort of continuous feel for that scene. So you just kind of accept it and just go, "Oh, that's a Robert Eggers film."
It reminds me, of
look, it's there.
Yeah,
you really look.
That's what the beauty of, again, going back to just his films, is the stuff you might have missed the first time, the second time, you catch that stuff in the background. So it's great to hear just how he approaches film and how he comes about making these crafting this art that he does with filmmaking. It's just such a beautiful thing to see, man. And I'm excited to revisit the film. I'm going to see it again when it comes out here on Friday to the public. I saw it a couple weeks ago, and I'm really excited to kind of revisit the film. It's just on a first viewing, it's one of my favorite films this year, man. I think that he definitely.
Yeah, I don't know what else is coming out that I'm really pumped about. I mean, we've had the Batman and the Northman.
Yeah.
I've got nothing standing out in my head that I'm like hanging for. So I hope some other big stuff comes out. But man, I kind of feel like 2022 is peak cinema.
Well, fingers crossed. There are some things I still have on my bucket list that I'm pretty excited for. Some art house films, obviously some of the bigger budget films, some of the Marvel, DC stuff. But yeah, as you mentioned, it's been a great year so far, man. I've enjoyed. It was an A24 film with Michelle Yeoh, Everywhere. Everything Everywhere All at Once.
I do need to check that out.
Man. Oh my goodness.
It looks wicked.
It's crazy, man.
Yeah, that's my kind of like trippy and weird. And there's another one called X, which I'm pretty keen for.
I got it. Yeah, the Ty West film. I got a chance to see that. I was a fan of that film as well.
Yeah. Oh, dude, one thing I wanted to touch on with the Northman, because it's one of the most like excitably reacted to things in the trailer. Like for all the reactions I saw, all different channels across YouTube, people were losing their mind over the spear catch. Yeah. And I wanted to talk about that. And
let's hear it, man, because I love that scene. It's just so badass. Like, what?
It is badass. And it is a feasible thing that can be done. And like Robert Eggers says, there are written records of it, that are super old and refer to it. But it was CGI, which a lot of people probably won't be surprised to hear. But it is a physical thing that you can do. I don't recommend doing it with actual spears or javelins, but the way we came about developing it for the film was basically Robert had the idea and then was told our stunt coordinator, Cece, that this is how he wants the fight to kind of kick off. How do we do it? And luckily for us, we had a guy on the stunt team, Daniel Ord, who competed for Great Britain in the Olympics doing decathlon. So he's a man of track and field, and the dude knows how to throw stuff. And this is something that they actually did just for shits and giggles in training. And maybe not that kind of distance, but they would do it. So Dan literally had the experience for that exact thing, and he's just like, "Oh, this is how you do it," and he just showed CC like how to catch a spear and then throw it back at someone. And it's like, all right, well, there you go. That's how it works.
Oh man,
And
I
then
love that scene.
Robert just sort of went, okay, and it doesn't try to like dress it up or make it cooler or tweak it. It's like that's how it physically works. Great.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, that literally came about. First Robert's idea, but then second, literally having a decathlon athlete on the team who just knew how to do it.
It all worked out. That is awesome. And which also, I know you touched on the one of the longest scenes that you guys shot with having to come back on set. Was there another scene that just you were either rather a part of or maybe seeing on set that you were just like, this is just, I've made it. I'm in the industry. This is what I love here. What was some of maybe more your more memorable moments being on set of the Northman?
Oh, what else was memorable? Dude, for me, like the Berserker raid and the Natlia game were massive highlights. Everything else from there was sort of smaller bits of action for me, and I did a few bits of stunt rigging. There's a few times where Amleth is on a wire and sort of gets smashed around a bit, like when he's fighting the giant. That was a cool scene. That dude Ian is a big boy who plays the giant.
10 feet tall. It was ridiculous. It was crazy, man.
That was cool. There's a classic example in that fight scene, and once you've now that will hear this, you'll be like, oh yeah, of course. It's like a classic Texas switch. 1 minute you're looking at the stunt double in the frame. They go out of frame, the camera points just onto the giant, and then like behind camera, Alex and Mark are just switching place. I think it's in that order. I think it's Mark getting smashed on a wire and me operating that pull, slamming him into something, and then Alex stepping in and continuing the action.
Wow.
And that's a fun thing, doing hand pulls on set for flying people or smashing them up. Is a lot of the time you operate them totally blind. There's less of a Northman discussion and more of like a stunt and rigging kind of general thing for people who are interested. But yeah, a lot of the time when we fly people on wires, we'll do our best to set up our pull station somewhere that we have an eye line to the action, because obviously if you can see your performer, then it's just safer. But sometimes sets and camera work just don't allow for that.
Sure.
So we're often having to do things to a mark on the ground or a mark on the rope. Everything will be noted down like in a Bible or some sort of system where you note down what's on a rig, where, like, what step of the ladder someone jumped off, measurements that they ran to and from, all kinds of things like that to make it as exact as possible, and so that you shoot it and then it's put to bed, and then for whatever reason you got to reshoot it, you just whip out your Bible and then you go, you're on the 8th step, you were 100 inches away from this point on the ground, and then you recreate it exactly. But yeah, a lot of the time you can't see what you're doing, so you just have to go off feel and a monitor if you're lucky, and verbal cues from someone who does have the eye line. And then not only do you have to be good at doing that thing with an eye line, like you have to be good at doing it blind, and they have to be good at calling based on what they see.
And
you've got to be good at reacting to them. So it's a crazy like number of factors. Because if someone is inconsistent at calling out 3, 2, 1 action at the same speed every time, when people are coming off of a 1 for this shot, and then they go off and now on the next shot, like there's different ways of calling things out, and sometimes you use combinations. It gets pretty hectic, and it's super fun. But obviously, like, you have to
be on your P's and Q's. You got to know what you're doing. Got to pay attention.
You have to not drop people, and everyone needs to be all over it. So there was an element of that on the Northman.
Again, man, it just speaks to the meticulous style of the shooting, but also the crew that you just mentioned, and so much that goes into making these films, man. And again, I think this is an incredible movie, and you guys did a great job of putting this, what I consider just a beautiful movie and an epic movie in so many ways to the screen, man. I'm excited people to see it.
It should clean up at the awards, hey? Like,
I hope it does, man. I really do. from a production standpoint, performance, and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Like, you know, as we were working on it, like
you can tell you were
we could tell it was going to be pretty out there, but pretty amazing. We knew at the very least the film would look spectacular. Like, Jared is a wizard of film and lenses. Like,
I got some of the shots you share with me here, being on set, man. Again, building the sets and just the scenic sights of everything. It's just gorgeous.
Oh, dude, it was so cool. And yeah, man, like, they would wait either for gaps in the clouds or wait for clouds to come, depending on what the shot demanded.
The shot, yeah.
And they would just hold the whole set until a bit of cloud cover came.
Oh, man, yeah.
You'd have, you know, you'd have this guy Seamus looking at the clouds, and he's really good at estimating wind speeds and cloud sizes, and he would be like, "That's about 5 minutes until we get the light we want."
Shane the weatherman.
Yeah. And if it was longer, they'd just wait. Whereas Michael Bay would be like, "I'll fix it in post.
Fix it, and we'll make a daytime look like night or night look like day." That's funny.
But not these dudes. And like, you know, if Robert Eggers wants a puddle to be 3 meters that way, the green's going to come in and they're moving
make it happen.
3 meters that way. And there's a reason for it. And Robert will back it up. Like, it's just everything had a purpose and a thought behind it. And yeah, like, there's no, I don't know, it's just cool.
Man, just cut, action, cut. All right, let's move that. It's so great to hear that, man, because again, I'm such a big fan of his work. And even going back to my comments on the film, I mentioned that you can tell, and it's so you're reinforcing that, you can tell there was passion, there was a purpose, there was meaningfulness to the film. And I'm glad to hear, you know, you're reinforcing all those thoughts that I had about the film. For someone that wasn't even a part of it, you can just see it on the screen, and it exudes, it radicates off the screen when you can tell the passion is there. And Robert Eggers is one of the best in the business at doing that, man, bringing that passion to the screen.
Yeah, man. I don't know how many spots there might be for stunts on Nosferatu when he eventually gets that off the ground.
Yeah.
But, you know, I will happily go through his, you know, process and style of filmmaking again if there's ever a role that I can sort of fill on whatever he does in the future. Because as painful as it can be and as slow as some of the days can be, like, I want to stay involved, man. Like, he's, you know, as much as we all love a big brainless action film, to do something with that much soul and character is pretty unique today. Like,
that's awesome, man. I mean, hey, we might get full circle going back to you said you would love to do a horror film. You might be caught in a horror scene, man. You might be one of the victims
if I could die a horrible, bloody death in a Robert Eggers film, a horror film, like,
bucket list moment there, huh?
Bucket list all day, man.
Hey, man, let's manifest that in the air now. You will somehow, some way make your way on that set and get that brutal kill you've been looking for, my friend. I definitely wish that to you. But this kind of